Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Delivered to a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in about that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her, they've been yelling for her.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Chad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's good to see everybody in chat. Hi Ashley Oaks, Karen, I saw Rebecca Hooper, Pointer Lover, Chopper, Nikki Rex is here. Can you guys hear me before I proceed? Good morning, Sleuth Mom, and everyone else who's joining. Joe, it's good to see you. Chopper, if I didn't say your name. Dustin, hi everyone. Lisa, good to see you. Hi True Crime Swedish Sleuth. Just waiting for the okay from chat that they can hear me before I proceed. And I am drinking my coffee as well, Jody, so cheers. Llama Mama, sound is good. Okay, thank you, Elizabeth and everyone else. Hi, Adrian. Okay, so we are going to talk about Idaho 4 today. I've got some notes. I also put together a little video. So I just want to kind of just jump right into it now that I know that you guys can hear me. And yeah, just hit the like button if you haven't done so. And I just appreciate you all being here. I will pause it and elaborate when need be, but I just want to play this pre-recorded stuff for you. Good morning, Titanium Built. It's good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Law Nerd Amber, hello. Okay, let's get into it, guys. So give me 1 second to kind of switch things up in the studio here in StreamYard. Okay. Everyone, welcome back to the channel. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And let's just get into where things are headed for the channel for 1 second. I'm going to be going through somewhat of a move in the next few months. So my office is all over the place. I'll be doing some videos that are like this, just very laid back recording on my phone as I'll be putting stuff away, including my ring light and all the filming equipment. So just stay with me while we go through this little awkward stage of just me recording on my phone. And yeah, thank you all for your support and I appreciate it very much. I just want to recap some of the statements that were made at the beginning of the investigation.
Well, there was a lot of blood. The ones were to the chest area or the upper body area.
Just one of her last messages, she reached out to Jack and said, "Jack, get back to me." And he didn't. She goes, "We share a dog together," which they did. She's like, "You need to reach out to me." So
Please come over. She was wanting Jack to come over.
There's no damage to anything, and the door was still open when we got there.
We have looked at massive amounts of video footage, especially in the critical camera areas, and we've looked at the 24 hours prior to and 24 hours after of those, and now we're extending that out even further to other cameras and other time frames.
I want to go through some of these statements by Cece Moore, who is the investigative genetic genealogist. And she sort of explained the familial link with Bryan Kohberger on the sheath. Let's listen to what she has to say about that. Okay, sorry. Can you guys hear me right now? I was just going to elaborate a little bit before Cece Moore came on. And I just wanted to say that I'd noticed that there was a lot of misinformation out there as far as the sheath and the familial link that is being used on the sheath. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, their case is falling apart. They can't even use the genealogical link that they came up with on the sheath, so it must not be valid and they don't have much of a case. And I think that it's actually the opposite. I think that they have way more DNA and way more evidence, hence the title of this live stream, at the crime scene, where the admitting the genealogical link that was found on the sheath is just not needed. Like, they have way more solid DNA and links to Bryan at the scene, that's why they decided to throw out or not even admit the genealogical one. And so Cece Moore here is just going to explain a little bit more about, why they might not admit it in court. And it seems pretty common.
Someone's being arrested on genetic genealogy alone. Genetic genealogy is simply a tip. It's a lead generator. It's a highly scientific tip, but it's still just a tip. So we can point law enforcement in the right direction with this technique, but they still have to perform their full investigation. They still have to do everything they would do if someone called that tip into Crime Stoppers. Most importantly, they need to collect DNA from that person of interest and compare it to their court admissible genetic profile. And that is that law enforcement profile that is compared against their databases, that CODIS profile. And so that is the one that is court admissible, and that is the one that is used as the basis of an arrest warrant. And so I expect when we finally get to see that, it'll likely barely mention genetic genealogy. It may not mention it at all. It may just say that they were able to collect surreptitious DNA from him, compare it to the crime scene DNA, and they got that match, that one-to-one exact match is what they need. And those are the ones we often hear them use statistics, like 1 in 30 trillion people would have this profile. And that is what gets someone arrested and is used in court and eventually helps convict someone, not the genetic genealogy.
So what I took from that is, the genetic genealogy is just like an investigative tool. It's like, an extension of other means that they can use to, look into the crime. So, for example, they were following them in that car, remember? And they stopped them twice on the way home to Pennsylvania. And at one point, Bryan says that they're going to get Thai food. So the cops could easily have undercover followed him and his father to get watch them get the Thai food or whatever, and surreptitiously take his DNA or trash and confiscate it that way. Or the search warrant that they did on his apartment, when it came back that there was that stain on his mattress cover, and it said that they had tested it or whatever. Say that came back not to be like one of the victims' DNAs, and it came back and it was actually another match at the crime scene that they had, because he killed 4 people. Let's think about statistics and the probability that he cut himself in the midst of killing 4 people. Some of them that we know fought back. Nails, they have DNA under their nails, hopefully, and probably, if we're going to think about what would be probable and actually what happened, there's more samples of DNA that they could compare, I believe, at the crime scene, whether it was his own blood that dripped, whether it was skin cells underneath their nails, a piece of hair, maybe he was sweating on them, maybe there was saliva. There's just so many means of DNA that could be at the scene that they've probably used to connect him there, where they don't need the familial link. So, and exactly, True Crime Swedish Sleuth says they have so much more than we deserve to know. We only know 10% of what they have. I agree. And that kind of just extends more into my rant of, the arrest affidavit is just that. It's just a simple run over notes of why this person, it's legal to arrest this person pretty much. And in those notes, it might not explain where he parked, because I'd seen people, and it's fair. I understand. Let's go through every little thing. Because we don't really have much else right now with the gag order and with the trial set in October, which we know will get delayed likely. So we're going to run over everything in that affidavit and examine it. But, the fact that they don't mention where he parked, like, I get that that's curious, but this isn't like a synopsis in the discovery of the entire crime. And this isn't the trial where they have the burden of proof to say, like, he went here, his car turned around here, he parked here, he walked there, and this is how we believe it went down. Like, the state has the burden of proof, but that's not until trial. So when we're looking at the arrest affidavit, that's what it is. It's just about arresting him. So there's not going to be those details that we're kind of wondering, like, why don't they have where he parked? That's suspicious. That's weird. Do they even know? And, it's like, I understand kind of questioning things, but let's bring ourselves back down to reality a bit. Like, this isn't the trial. This isn't the prosecution laying out to us how things went down. Like in the Alex Murdaugh trial, they had time they went through everything and told the jury and told all of us, this is how we think it went down. And it was up to the jury and for all of us to kind of, is that possible? Did he have enough time? Was there somebody there? Like, even at trial, we were all wondering those things. So here, it's just going to be the same thing. Like, we're going to get those answers, but the arrest affidavit is not the key to every single thing we want to know. And it by no means has to say everything that we want to know, like where he parked and who ordered the DoorDash. It says she received it, but who ordered it? Like, all those little things have nothing to do with the arrest affidavit. So let me just continue on, and thank you guys for listening to me rant. And I do have notes also that I'll just kind of go through and talk through with you guys. So thank you so much for being here. Exactly, Shauna. It's just probable cause.
I do think, going back and looking at some things, that they do have a trail possibly of where Bryan allegedly leaves the house and goes to his car. And this is the path that they were sort of focusing on in this footage. So let's take a peek.
So this is from Fox. This was November 21st, and I'll actually read part of the article as well while we look at this. So I believe, and I think that that's what these investigators are believing, that, this was his path for entry and exit. Lots of leaves and all that. So was he walking and he was dripping blood? Did he have blood on his pants and it brushed up on these branches? There's just a lot there that I think is possible as far as DNA left at the scene. Now, with Bethany, and Bethany seen him, or I'm sorry, Dylan seen him. So why would he keep going? Well, was the door at an angle where he didn't see her? Did he see her, but he was already wounded from fighting 4 people? Or, at least some of them fought back, we know. So is there, a likelihood that he himself was dripping blood? So on the way out, he was wounded. Maybe he's seen Dylan, but he knew, like, okay, I'm in no shape to fight right now. I've got a wound here and it's not good because that knife obviously is very brutal. I just think that those are all possibilities. Maybe that's why he left her. Maybe that's why there's stuff at this back area that they're kind of looking through. Again, this is before the snowfall. So things are still kind of able to be collected. We've seen other images of crime scene techs bending down, picking stuff up, like in this area as well. And on the side of the house, we've seen them like crouched down, taking pictures. Good morning, CDT. It's good to see you. So I just think that if we're going to think about the likelihood of crimes like this, there's so many, and I don't even need to source them because they're in a bunch of past live streams we've done, experts as far as law enforcement experts, like on the federal level, local level, retired. We've shown CIA retired officers. We've shown Joseph Scott Morgan, every single one of them, and even YouTubers who have experience, Duty Ron, Ed Wallace, Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff. They all have like chimed in on their professional experience and stuff like this, and they stand firm with the idea and the fact that, he likely cut himself through this process. There's likely blood that he left at the scene or leaving the scene, in my opinion. So when we're going to talk about the sheath and how they're throwing out the familial link of it and all that, like, I just think that it is what it is, and that we should have, faith in the probability and statistics that there's way more DNA at this scene. It just seems likely. Why else would all these agents be out here examining this area? We also know by the arrest affidavit and Dylan's statement that he left out the sliding doors. So anything that's found in that path, like, we know that there's a shoe print. But anything else that's kind of found in that path will lead to this whole plot or synopsis that they've kind of given us. So any blood that dripped out that back door or in that back area aligns with the witness's statement that he walked past me and he went towards the sliding door in the kitchen and left. So let's just watch a little bit more of this, and then I'll read from the article that this was all in. And remember, this is from November 21st. On November 21st, 2022 at 7:02 p.m. Eastern Time, Fox News put out an article titled "Idaho Police Expansion of Crime Scene Could Possibly Mean Attempt to Uncover New Evidence," officials said. Investigators' expansion of the crime scene of the murder of 4 University of Idaho students could mean they are trying to uncover new evidence, the police chief of a neighboring university told Fox News Monday. It's likely there's potentially some evidence there that they're going to attempt to locate, Washington State University Chief Gary Jenkins told on the story. So Gary is the police chief at the Washington State University. So the media reached out for his opinion on the information that they had discovered. And they were explaining, or he's given his point of view. David wants to know, and hello, good morning. So what is the DNA they got? Explain. Well, they haven't explained and told the public that, because that's all vital information that only investigators would hold close to their chest and the prosecution would hold close until they get to trial and they can lay it out and elaborate. So in my opinion, there's way more DNA at the scene with killing 4 people than is stated in the affidavit, because the affidavit isn't an evidence log. It's nothing that they're going to list in an arrest affidavit. The arrest affidavit is just probable cause. So there's a reason why they've only listed in the probable cause affidavit the genealogical link on the sheath, because that's just enough that they had in accumulation with everything else, the CCTV footage that he's seen on, the pings, etc. They don't need to tell the public what other DNA they have at that point. They just need to tell the courts at that point in that arrest affidavit that we have probable cause that this person is the killer and this is why. So they don't even have to tell the courts all the DNA they have at that moment. They just have to give them enough so that the judge says, okay, yep, that's good. Arrest him, or that seems like enough, arrest him. And that's what it is. A lot of people talk about circumstantial evidence not being valid enough, or not being doesn't have much weight, and that's just not true. There is a lot of cases, especially before the technology was advanced, that circumstantial evidence was enough. That's how you got arrested. That's how you got convictions. So they don't have to state all the DNA that's on the scene. In fact, we don't even have the autopsy reports. So the autopsy reports are going to state, we clipped Xana's nails and we sent them to a lab and we found blah, 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 DNA underneath her nails. You know what I mean? Like, so that's going to give us the evidentiary lingo, I think, that you're looking for, verbiage that you're looking for that will explain what DNA was there. Perhaps even they speak on the clothing that they were wearing, because we've seen in other autopsies where they talk about the clothes and they were dirty or blah, blah, blah. This one might state something like massive amounts of blood were found on a shirt, sent it to a lab, and it had more than one person's DNA in it and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, so all that is just going to take time, and you will not find anything about the DNA and stuff in an arrest or affidavit. So I just feel like out there's just been a lot of confusion and misinformation and people demanding things that just, even the family, like, I don't want to talk badly, but the family is saying, like, we want more information. We want this, we want that. Like, so many other trials, the family doesn't hear that stuff until the trial for the first time. So they're not, or, you know, we're not entitled to know what other DNA is there besides the familial link. They just want to show us the cards that they have, and the familial link in those arrest affidavit documents was enough at the moment for the public to know about. So they absolutely likely have way more, but they just don't need to tell us. Why have the families not been given any peace of mind with the DNA results? The same reason why the public hasn't. It's just not, it's just not how it works. The family is entitled to know things, but they're not entitled to know the whole discovery files, etc., like at the moment. I think that all that is going to come in time, and it's just going to take it's a learning process. And I think the families are even learning that too. Like, they're going to learn the information probably the same time the public will, if not maybe like a day or two prior. Like when we went through the Lori Vallow trial, Kay and Larry heard details for the first time, the same time we all did. So let me just continue with this November 21st statement. And remember, this is the police chief from WSU who's given his opinion on why they expanded the crime scene. Now, remember, expanding the crime scene isn't just some little, they decided to look over here. Like, there is a reason. And that's kind of what the whole point of this live stream is. There's a reason why they're kind of looking in that wooded area and those leaves and everything else that they're kind of combing through. And, there's something there, I believe. And that, I believe, it was his entry and exit. Police has yet to make an arrest and have not identified any suspects. All the information we're getting from Moscow Police Department is that this is not a random attack, that this was a targeted attack, he said. Typically, the types of things that would lead you to come to that conclusion are the types of details at the crime scene they don't want to release right now to the public so that they do not jeopardize their or the integrity of the investigation and a potential prosecution. So right there, his opinion is, he's saying that from his communication with Moscow police, that they have reiterated to him, it's not random. This was targeted. And then he says, the types of things that would lead you to come to that conclusion are the details at the crime scene, which at this point, it says they do not want to release that to the public now. And there's a lot they still haven't released to the public. So this kind of takes me back to the theory that CDT has had from day one when they're speaking on the crime scene, and how would they have known it was targeted? And she's thrown out the idea that perhaps there was some sort of message written on the walls. Maybe there was a manifesto that he had wrote, where the cops roll up to the crime scene and they see, wow, this guy really, he spelled out literally why he did this. I think that that's very possible. in my documentary I showed, they sat down with Aaron Snell and they asked him, were there messages written on the wall? And he sort of gives like a weird answer. He's like, I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you're Idaho State Police. And of course, he can't share information that's privy to law enforcement at that point. But the way that he answered it made me really like interested, because I do think that that's a possibility. How else would they have known? I mean, even the mayor came out saying it was a crime of passion and then tried to backtrack that. So I just think that that is a possibility. And I think that that theory could definitely prove to be true, but we will not find that out until trial. David asked Jen Lou, no gag order for the families. And that's an interesting point. However, if they go for the death penalty, David, they absolutely will need the family to step up on the, whatchamacallit, the stand, be under oath, and give some sort of testimony or statement for the penalty phase if this goes for a death penalty. So that's why they can't really have the family speaking, because they need to have them in a way that they could go up on the stand, and they can't go up and, you know, do that if they're out in public making statements, or there's some sort of something to do with the fact that they might make a statement on the stand under oath for the death penalty phase. So that's why some of the family is asked, you know, like to follow the gag order, or, you know, and honestly, some of the family, Steve just did like a whole interview on Court TV. So I think that they have more of an understanding of things that they can say and things they can't say. So Dustin said he may have stumbled uphill, left some blood or inadvertent evidence. I think so. I think that that's, I mean, you could walk and have somebody's hair on your leg and then it drops down on a bloody leaf or something, you know, like there's avenues that we can take where there could be something that was left.
During his hearing, the prosecution, the defense, and the media coalition gave their arguments, and pretty much the media was saying that it's their duty to bring the public the information on the case.
It is the obligation of members of the media to get the story right.
The prosecution and defense were in agreement that the gag orders should remain in place.
They argued that the release of more information could be distorted, and that interviews with attorneys or people involved in the investigation could be twisted and manipulated, throwing out the possibility of a fair trial for Kohberger.
It's not even accuracy, it's just speed. It's just how quickly can they put something into the next news cycle.
The media coalition argued that misinformation.
It's hard to hear because the audio was terrible in the courtroom. And then even when I turned it up, it's like, I can't understand this guy. He said it's not even accurate. It's just whatever we can put out into the new news cycle. So I think that that was valid. I mean, it really is. Whether you're for or against Bryan Kohberger, you cannot deny that the media has just been chaotic. They've handled this very, like, I mean, you guys seen it firsthand. So I think that the gag order was argued really well by the media, but ultimately the defense and the prosecution seem to be in the same page that, you know, the media is just putting out stuff that's just not true.
Would be eradicated if the facts were fully available.
And actually, the defense states that journalists just don't have the credibility that they used to.
Journalists do not have the credibility they once did.
The judge stated that he usually always lets cameras in trials and in the courtroom, but he understands that this case is just massive and it's just not his regular case. The judge also stated that the jury could be tainted by images from the courtroom.
This is a different case.
Kohberger's team criticized the camera efforts so far, saying they've been largely focused on close-ups of their client.
It's what the media does with the videos, with the photographs, and how it's sort of manipulated in some way that is harmful.
No one's saying that this case will be tried behind walls of silence, as has been said.
People. Now, and hello, Roxanne, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here, especially on your day off. I really appreciate that, getting up early and sitting for my live. I wanted to ask you guys while we played this. Now, do you think that Bryan Kohberger looks better in a suit? And when I say better, I don't mean like, do you find him attractive? I just mean, is the appearance in the courtroom important enough, even for someone you think is guilty, that, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's his constitutional right to wear the suit and not be in the orange jumpsuit. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think that it makes him look less guilty? And now I have to agree, I've been kind of in that boat, how they were speaking on the media, doing close-ups of him and analyzing him. I definitely think that we've done that here. I know that we've slowed him down in slow motion and watched him. I mean, it's just, you want to know, like, who is this person who did this horrendous crime to these people, you know? And do I think the suit makes him look less guilty? I do. I think that the hair aspect really helps too. Like, I think that when his hair wasn't gelled and stuff, like, he just kind of looked crazy. Like, I don't know. It's just crazy, in my opinion, how looks really do matter, in a sense of like, yeah, he looks in a way like less creepy to me. And I know that that just sounds so shallow, that like a little hair gel in a suit could really change my opinion. But like, if there's scientific data and proof that looks do matter, whether it's about, you know, someone you're dating or whether it's the courtroom. And I'm about to read a little bit of an article that pretty much still says that. Lucia says he's still creepy looking. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think that he's somebody I'd want to go talk to, or I don't know. I can't get past everyone saying that he looks like Howard, or what was his name? Anna Nicole's lawyer. Like, every time I look at him, I see him.
I wondered why Kohberger was allowed to wear a suit, and some people.
Yes, Lisa, I agree with you. He's innocent until proven guilty, so he should get to wear what he wants. And I agree with that 100%. I stand by that. And I definitely think that there's other cases where that obviously was allowed too. I mean, the Letitia Stout, she was given the option, do you want to wear this or do you want to wear regular clothes? She wore regular clothes. Now, as far as cameras in the courtroom, could they possibly do it at different angles like they did for Letitia Stout's trial? You know, it wasn't right up on her face and all that like they did in the Alex Murdaugh trial. Like, is there different avenues that the judge can and will take? And good morning, Duty Ron. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here. But it's just like, I wonder, you know, could we get a camera in the courtroom and it be set up in a specific way? Leave the gag order, but also allow cameras, but have it be this way instead of that way, or you know what I mean? So yes, Titanium Built said Letitia didn't want to at first though. Right. That's what was stunning to me, is she had said like, no, she wanted to wear her jumpsuit or whatever, jail jumpsuit, but then she decided to wear regular clothes and she was still found guilty. So it's just interesting, you know, that the evidence is going to outweigh whether the jury thinks you look good or not, right? Justice Served Daily, good to see you. He still gives me bad vibes no matter what he wears. I agree. There's just something off, eerie about him. And yes, I am going to judge him on his looks. That's kind of what this discussion is. But I do think ultimately he should be allowed to wear the suit if he wanted to and at these proceedings.
People disagreed with the fact that he wasn't wearing the orange jumpsuit. This article just kind of elaborates a little bit on that subject.
All right.
The following expert opinion comes from a legal analyst on this website. It's called Patterson Law Firm, and you can actually read the whole blog. I'll link it in the description. It's titled Appearances Matter in Court. Appearances matter in the courtroom, whether you are a party to the case, a witness, or a jury member. Criminal defendants who are attending court should take care to present a good appearance for the judge and jury to see. In a DUI or a criminal case, the defendant who is charged with a crime is on trial from the moment he steps into a courtroom. Even though the real trial may not happen until
until later. His appearance at the arraignment and any pretrial hearings matter. They may not admit it, but the demeanor of a defendant or witness may affect how judges and other attorneys respond to the defendant's requests. For example, a surely uncooperative defendant who asks for leniency in the amount of bail could face longer odds at success because the court and the prosecutor are inclined not to like him. It goes on to say, when the jury is in the courtroom at trial, appearances matter even more. Juries can be influenced by the smallest characteristics of a defendant, lawyer, or witness. A sloppily dressed, cursing, or slouchy defendant raises a few people's sympathies, while a neatly dressed, polite, and respectful defendant could win people over. Further, listening to questions asked of you and responding briefly but clearly can indicate to the jury that you care about your case's outcome, which can make them care more about you. Do you think that the gag order helps or hurts the misinformation that is surrounding this case? Do you think that it hurts the ability to give Bryan Kohberger a fair trial? Whether we like to admit it or not, trial by media has happened in numerous cases. In fact, Netflix had a whole series surrounded by the basis of that. Before I keep playing this pre-recording, I just had a thought too. For those who watched the Johnny Depp trial, do you remember the days that Johnny would be in court waiting for it to start and he'd pull out the chair for, gosh, what was his lawyer's name? The female one. But you know what I'm talking about? Can you imagine if they prep Kohberger to pull the chair out for Ann Taylor? Oh my gosh, I would lose it. Because they really do want to make it seem, like looks really do matter. It's just, it is what it is. Oh my gosh. Camilla, yes, thank you so much. I knew it started with a C. And hello, Ruckus Rocks. It's good to see you. I would just die if they had Kohberger do that for Anne. Aspect and fact that it does happen. I'm going to mention a case that may trigger some people with, my opinion on it, and that's the Scott Peterson case. Now, hang on before you just up and bail or before you write a nasty comment, because I know that this case definitely triggers people. And, whether you think he's guilty or not, Bye, Duty Ron. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all your help. Think that there's a lot of people who do think he's guilty, but also agree with the idea that he did not receive a fair trial because he was tried by the media way before he made it to the courtroom. In fact, he was changing the appearance of himself to hide from the media. Many people believe that he dyed his hair to kind of escape. But honestly, there's images of him which are hard to find, but they're out there where he was talking to law enforcement openly and with the blonde hair. He was simply trying to hide from the media. A lot of people think that he's guilty, but they will still state that, yeah, he was tried by the media. And the last thing we want is that to happen in the Kohberger's case and leave room for an appeal. Now, as far as the gag order, I can deal with it staying in place as long as we get cameras in the courtroom. Now, I don't know if it's a California thing or it was something that Scott Peterson's lawyers advocated for, but there were no cameras in the courtroom for Scott's trial. Will that happen in Idaho like it did for Lori Vallow? We'll have to wait and see. But we got a lot of information from the Vallow case before the trial took place, like in preliminary, body cam, all that was given to us by Arizona and Idaho State prior to her trial. So it's just interesting to see the differences in states and cases. And ultimately, we just have to make sure that information going around, will not taint the jury pool. Just like there's people who believe 100%. Sorry, I have to pause it on Scott's face. 1 second. I just got to elaborate a little bit. So, not only do we want to make sure that the media isn't putting out false information and, this gag order stays in place so that, he gets a fair trial. But it also, we have to think like, not only do they have to have a jury that doesn't really know much about this case, but they also have to find a jury, 12 people who are pro DP, death penalty. So that in itself is going to be a task for the courts to kind of accumulate a jury that way. So the gag order, in a sense, kind of will help on many levels, but also think about the aspect of it is going to be kind of hard because a lot of people could say, including myself, like, yeah, I'll say he's guilty. Like, I'll listen to the evidence and I can do that. But depending on the case, like if it's death penalty, some people just might be like, well, I don't know. So that does kind of make it even harder to select 12 people who don't know about the case, one, and then who are pro DP. So Justice Served Daily says cameras in the courtroom also helps the drama in Casey Anthony trial. Diaz played the cameras, not just jury. That's a good point. And I believe, actually, I don't remember who was talking about the OJ one over the weekend, but they were just saying how when the cameras were in the courtroom for that, it was just a chaos. It was just a scene. And speaking of looks matters, remember in the OJ case, the prosecution, gosh, what's her name? She had to change her appearance, remember? Because everyone was ripping apart like the way she looked, like, oh, she just looks so harsh and she looks like she's a B word. And, and then all of a sudden she started, she softened her appearance. So public opinion absolutely matters 100%. And like a jury is not supposed to watch this news information, right? Like when they're serving on the jury. But what if it happens? Or, you just don't know like what could taint a jury, and we just cannot have that happen. It just would not be fair. Marcia Clark, thank you so much, Justice Served Daily. Thank you.
That Scott Peterson is innocent. I've seen the same with Bryan Kohberger. People are claiming 100% he's innocent, he was framed, etc. I'm sure you guys have seen it too. Here's where I bring the same kind of question to those who believe.
Okay, Dustin, have a great day. Thanks for being here. So I was basically saying, there's a lot of people who think Scott Peterson is innocent. And in my opinion, I've seen just as much, if not more, thinking BK is 100% innocent. And I'm not saying that he's not, like, I believe that you're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, 100%. I stand by that. But the way that people are going so hard for Kohberger, I'm just astounded by, like fan pages, etc. And it's like, this is way more than I've ever seen with a defendant, in my opinion. Now, social media is way more, it's more present nowadays, obviously, than in the Scott Peterson days. So it's hard to compare because I'm on Facebook and I see it in groups. There's Facebook groups completely made up around loving Bryan Kohberger, So as much as like the defense was saying like, oh, the media is zooming in on my client's appearances and judging it, and it's not fair. In the same sense, I'm also thinking to myself, like, there's so many pro Kohberger things out there right now, YouTube channels, Reddit threads. I haven't even checked Instagram, but I'm sure there's something on Instagram and TikTok, So as much as they want to say, like, there's so much anti our client out there in the media, I will also say, like, but I've seen a lot of pro Kohberger stuff. Like, so it just seems like it seems a bit more balanced than the defense was trying to make it seem in their court hearing, like, about the gag order. But at the same time, I do think, like, okay, leave the gag order, but let us have cameras in the trial, So it's just interesting to me that, they really did that, which is what they're supposed to do, is fight for their client. But in the reality sense, I've just seen so much pro Kohberger stuff out there in the media world, even Twitter, that, I think it's balanced. It's more pro defendant stuff than I've seen in other cases, like I was saying. But that's just my opinion. You guys let me know what you think too.
In Scott's innocence. He dyed his hair and it appeared he was trying to flee. And they claim, well, yeah, he was being tried by the media and public opinion at that point and being cornered in by law enforcement and just by public's opinion of his innocence at that point being, none.
that he, of course, was trying to run away, and he felt like he had no other choice and he was cornered at that moment. So yes, he did try to run, but it wasn't because he was guilty. It's because he was already deemed guilty before he even made it to the courtroom. Now, for those who believe 100% in Kohberger's innocence, I bring the same sort of question to you guys with, why was he seen cleaning his car meticulously and, with lots of effort? Why was he wearing gloves seen in public and, at his parents' house? What would be the purpose of him taking these steps if he was innocent? So please comment down below or share your thoughts and let me know what you guys think.
Is Bryan the only suspect in this? Bobby Chacon. As far as we know, Bryan Kohberger is the only one charged in this case.
Yeah, I believe it's safe to assume that he's the only suspect right now that took part in this homicide. I mean, there are other probably things and avenues to look at, whether somebody helped him avoid capture or avoid suspicion, after the fact, kind of accessory after the fact type of behavior. There was some talk about maybe his father knew when they were driving across country, but not that the father ever knew beforehand. So, and that's all speculation. So I think that at this point in time, there's only reason to believe that he is the only suspect. I think that if they've moved along in this case so far now into the court proceedings, that if there was another suspect, they would have had to alert the defense to it. They would have had to, probably made a public statement about that, because you're talking about dangerous and violent criminals out in the community. And I would hope that they would make the public aware of that.
Well, and if somebody else happened to be involved in this, if they believed somebody else was involved, that could possibly help Bryan Kohberger's defense, because they could say, this wasn't our guy, it was that other guy.
And that just has not happened. So while we looked into, and other people have looked into the affidavit where it says suspect vehicle 1, further research just indicated to us that that's just, the notes that they're going to use at that moment to help it be as clear and as simple as possible for the judge and jury to understand. If they do add another vehicle, of course, yes, that will be suspect vehicle 2. However, I mean, it's been how many months and there's been no other arrests. There's just nothing, the defense is filing motions through court, and those processes have developed and kept going. So there is no one else that even the defense is saying wait a minute, So that was Bobby Chacon's opinion. He's former FBI, but he also has a law degree. So he sort of has the advantage of knowing both sides, the legal aspect and, of course, the law enforcement's point of view. There's been plenty of other law enforcement people who have come out and said at this point, it doesn't seem that there's anyone else. They're not going to add anyone else at this moment. Bryan is it. If he had somebody else to kind of mention, he would have said so, to his lawyer at this point. So I think that while it's amazing that he could have gone into this house by himself, and in 14 to 16 minutes approximately, slaughtered more than half the house. It sounds crazy, but ultimately there's many experts who are coming out saying 15, 16 minutes sounds like enough time, especially when people are sleeping. I mean, if you're laying in your bed and someone just comes in attack, it's not really going to take that long for that to be over with, especially when we hear the wounds, the fatal ones, were to the upper chest area. So while the timeline absolutely will be pushed and tested in trial, which I'm very curious to see, which the same thing happened in Alex Murdaugh. At first, I was like, no way. He had enough time to do all this himself, clean up as much as he did, change his outfit, go to his mother's house, yada, yada, yada. Well, they actually proved, through GPS and pulled data from his SUV that he was going 82 miles an hour on these country roads. And it kind of just closed the timeline for me. The same thing will happen in this case where, the defense is, how could my client by himself There's 4 people and Ethan was an athlete and Ethan was over 6 foot, blah, blah, blah. They're going to do that. And, we're all going to be there for it. We're going to watch it and we're going to weigh common sense in our minds. And so is the jury. But it's possible, in my opinion. It's possible he left DNA at the scene, maybe on the victims, and it's possible he left it on his exit out the house. And it's definitely possible, in my opinion, that in 14, 16 minutes, you could do this crime. But I am open to everyone's opinion, of course. Leave down below why you don't think that that's an accurate time period. Now, when we're talking about demolishing the house, that's where I have a problem too, because we need to hear what it would sound like in that house for this crime to take place. If you're on the bottom floor and you hear something up on the top floor, like all that needs to kind of be laid out for the jury, in my opinion. So I do have a bit of worries when they're talking about demolishing the crime scene. Like, I think that absolutely needs to stay, in my opinion. So let me just finish this stuff up too, guys. Probably one of the most stunning developments, in my opinion, was the development of these pictures of Bryan at the Handmaid's Tale book reading and author signing or author meeting. I'm not sure which one it was, but I thought that these photos were more of a glimpse into Bryan than we've gotten in a while. Mostly because, for those who don't know the plot for that book and the TV show on Hulu, it pretty much is after a staged attack that eliminates the President of the United States and most of Congress, a radical political group called Sons of Jacob uses theonomic ideology to launch a revolution. The United States Constitution is suspended, newspapers are censored, and what was formerly the United States of America is changed into a military dictatorship known as the Republic of Gilead. The new regime moves quickly to consolidate its power, overtaking other religious groups, including Christian denominations. The regime reorganizes society using a peculiar interpretation of the Old Testament ideas and a new militarized hierarchical model of social and religious fanaticism among its newly created social classes. One of the most significant changes is the limitations of women's rights. Women become the lowest ranking class and are not allowed to own money or property or read or write. Most significantly, women are deprived of control over their own reproductive functions. Due to air pollution and radiation in the book, most women become infertile. And the fertile women are rounded up and forced to reproduce and become handmaids for the upper class families and men, which to me makes this Tinder date person who came out even more legitimate, because she stated herself that he had messaged her after their date, telling her that she had good birthing hips. So yeah, I just think that, and I saw Court TV mention this, but I haven't seen very many people mention the fact, which you can see right in his hand, that it's the book. This to me is just a huge red flag. It goes right along the theory that a lot of experts have had, that this was just a crime against women, possibly. And this book, him being there, I don't know, it plays into that theory. I've seen more theories that point towards him being an incel, and I'm not saying that 100% that's what I think, but when I'm using common sense and just using everything collectively of what we have, the statements from the waitresses in Pennsylvania, just, the fact he never really had like a girlfriend or a long relationship, I just feel like there's way more evidence that point towards this being a crime against women. Maybe Ethan was there at the wrong place at the wrong time, more than I'm seeing this being a cartel link. And I'm not trying to bash theories, and I listen to them all, but I'm not sure what's going on, how many cartel people are up in Idaho near Canada. But again, I'm open to all opinions. I need to see more connections. Like I said, there's more. I'm going to switch my screen up too and just recap that Tinder date. there's more circumstantial evidence or stuff kind of pointing towards this being a crime against women. In my opinion, that's just my opinion, guys. Please, I know that people are really, really going hard for this cartel theory. I get the comments. So I just kind of want to recap the Tinder date that came out. When this first came out, I gave it absolutely I didn't waste much time thinking about it, honestly. I heard it and it was like in the middle of all this hype and I was like, this girl's got to be lying. Like, I don't know. I'm always skeptical. But then I seen this Handmaid's Tale book and picture and I'm like, this is very much kind of going along with her saying that he messaged her after their date and mentioned birthing hips, just based off of that book and show, The Handmaid's Tale. In fact, that show was just I couldn't even finish it because it was just horrific, like the idea of it. So let's just recap and listen to her again. Now, she claims that she left and then he messaged her on Tinder. So if this is true, I'm hoping and assuming that law enforcement would pull some sort of records either from her or from his devices with Tinder and a message on there, whether it was deleted, I'm assuming you could bring back up. Like, it's not Snapchat where it disappears. Like, your Tinder messages are cataloged just like your Facebook ones are.
Bryan Kohberger was arrested. This woman couldn't believe her eyes.
I recognized him immediately and my heart just sank because
when the right to control your body is under
that, because I couldn't believe that, like, I was face to face with this guy.
Nurse Haley Willett says they met on Tinder in 2015 when they were both psych majors at Pennsylvania colleges. He took her to a movie, then insisted on escorting her to her dorm room.
I was kind of afraid to say no, so I just let him come in with me.
Then he did something she says she'll never forget.
He kept trying to tickle me, and I would ask him to stop, or I'd say, "What are you doing?" And he would be like, I'm not tickling you. And he would get very serious.
Creeped out by Kohberger, she came up with a clever ruse.
I proceeded to pretend to throw up in the bathroom, hoping that, it would gross him out and he would leave.
Did it work?
Yeah. He had messaged me on Tinder and said that he was leaving and that he had a good time and that he would message me later. And then about an hour later, he messaged me and he said that I had good birthing hips. And I just never messaged him back after that.
After what happened to the 4 Idaho students, Haley thinks she had a lucky escape.
It could have been me.
And this woman says she knows and sympathizes with what Dylan Mortensen is going through. Dylan is one of the 2 surviving roommates and didn't call 911 for 8 hours, despite coming face to face with the killer. She told police she was in frozen shock. She is not.
Now, I don't know if David left because his questions weren't being answered, but I think that this part of this segment should be listened to by David, just because, like, even though we all can't answer why it took Dylan so long to call 911, this woman has a firsthand experience with a situation like that. So what she has to bring to the table is way more than what any of us could come up with and try to explain to you, David. I don't know if you're still listening, but I felt like this aspect of this segment was important. And Titanium Built said that she's going to be going over a bit of the Handmaid's Tale book in her live stream and kind of connecting the dots and all that. So that'll be interesting. So check that out. And hello, EE Caroline and everyone else who has joined. Thanks for being here.
Not to blame for anything. Absolutely not.
Alana Zabel is a yoga instructor who attended Buffalo University in New York. She lived with 4 sorority sisters and suffered an eerily similar trauma. One night in 1992, a rapist broke into their home and attacked a student. Alana heard the attack, saw evidence that there had been a break-in, and even saw bloodstains, yet she convinced herself nothing was wrong.
I felt someone in my room, and I lifted up my head, and there was no one there, but then the front door closed.
She waited 6 hours to call 911 and will never forget the horrific scene she found in her housemate's bedroom.
Her mattress was 3/4 of the way soaked with blood. The walls were covered in blood. Everything was covered in blood.
She says the murders of the 4 students in Idaho brought back nightmarish memories. She fears Dylan, the surviving roommate, is likely to be traumatized for years to come.
She's going to beat herself up for the rest of her life, so we don't need to do that for her.
The attorney representing the family of one of the slain roommates says Dylan is also a victim in this case, adding that she provided information about the assailant which proved beneficial.
All right, and some other stuff I wanted to share. Give me a second to share my screen just to kind of go along with him being injured at the scene and possibly leaving a trail. Now, this was a video I did early on when his traffic stops came out. I feel, in my opinion, and it's kind of hard to see until you see it in real time because I did the video in slow motion at first and then it does regular speed. And I feel like the slow motion where I thought would kind of show you it better, it actually doesn't, in my opinion. The regular speed kind of shows it the best. But in my opinion, I feel like in his first traffic stop, Kohberger pulls down his sleeve after he like hands over his ID or whatever. His sleeve goes up because he's handing something to the officer. And then you see him kind of like pull his sleeve down with his other hand. In my opinion, that's what I feel like I'm seeing. Now, I could be wrong, and it's very hard to tell because the officer's like arm is right there, right in view. But then we've come out with other pictures of that traffic stop, and people have pointed out like it looked like he had like stitches or something on his arm. Remember, guys? Now, are we just seeing what we want to see, or is it really there? You know, so I just wanted to play that video and kind of revisit that idea. I also want to know in chat if you met someone on the internet. Now, I'm not saying this is your significant other or even somebody you worked with that you started dating. If you met someone on the internet, you've never seen them face to face, you hang out with them, it's kind of awkward, you fake being sick so that they leave, and then they message you about you having good birthing hips. Like, do you think that that comment is weird? Now, to her, she obviously didn't respond or like want to hang out with him again. So it was weird to her. For me, if I didn't really know you before that one meetup and you mentioned me having good birthing hips, I'm going to be kind of weirded out. Now, but there's other girls who have said that's normal or blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm just curious your guys' experience or what you would think. This isn't a scenario where it's someone you've been dating and they say you have good birthing hips. Like, this is someone you met on the internet, hung out with, and you wanted them to leave, and then they messaged you that. So I just am curious your guys' viewpoint there, and let me know what you think of this footage as well, okay? Now, I think that I see him pull his sleeve down, but I'm not sure. Thank you, Lisa and Riddler, for becoming members. I really appreciate you guys. Sleeve down during the first traffic stop. It's very quick and I slowed it down the best I could, but it appears that maybe he was hiding a wound on his right hand. I also included the clip slowed down of the second traffic stop where everyone sort of started noticing something on his arm. Let me know what you think. Comment down below. Now, is that something or nothing? I know it's a lot of people said, wow, that's amazing, or I see it. And then there's people who are like, you're reaching. So I'm just curious. Let's revisit the idea that, you know, this brutal weapon, some of them fought back. He very well could have dripped blood, got injured. Lots of experts have said it, not just me. Now I'm going to also play a screen. It's going to be muted because there's really not much to see, but this was found off of Twitter the day that they expanded the crime scene, and it's different than the Fox one that I played earlier in the stream. This one is actually in my documentary. I've slowed it down, but you can see also in the back of the area, like through the screen door, the area that they think he exited and, you know, went through that parking lot. Again, that's just theory. But here is them kind of looking through that area. I slowed it down. Just seems like an awful lot of attention and time spent in this area to come to the conclusion that it was just nothing, like there had to have been something, in my opinion. And again, that's part of my documentary. There's other images there that maybe you haven't seen before. But now I want to just play a little part of this segment from Court TV with Kaylee's father that came out. There was just one part that kind of stood out to me, and I wanted to go over it with you guys, and then that will conclude our live today. So I really appreciate you guys being here. Please hit the like button, comment down below your thoughts about everything that we've kind of talked about, and anyone watching on replay, thank you so much. There was something that just stood out here, when he talks about the motive possibly being jealousy.
I've seen it. Okay. Does he have any theory about the motive?
Yeah, he does, Vinny. I asked him, what's the connection? Because it's been rumored, Kaylee and or Maddie were the targets of this mass murder. He told me something I hadn't heard him or his family say before about why they think the alleged killer actually went to that home and murdered them. And remember, Maddie and Kaylee were on the 3rd floor. They were in the same room in the bed together, likely the place this murderer started. And so here's what he had to say about it.
They're just two girls that were always happy, always filming. So I think maybe he just seen that happiness, and there's something in him that was jealous of the fact that two people could love each other and be like the best friends. And I think that really rubbed him wrong and got him thinking about, well, why do they have this great life and I don't? And I think that's whoever he picked, that'll be the backstory, is just a jealousy of their lifestyle.
And I don't know. There was just something about him saying whoever they pick. Like, it's like he's saying whoever the prosecution is going to say the target was or what their motive of this crime was. I don't know. Just to me, it just seems, it's like I thought we already knew like who the target was and stuff. To me, that was just kind of strange. I don't know if anyone else kind of feels that way, but it just seems like I just have a hard time thinking. I'm not trying to say he's innocent by any means, 100% not saying that, but like, what would be like, why would he be jealous of Maddie and Kaylee? I don't know. I just want to know your guys' opinion. To me, that just seems sort of strange. Let me see if there's anything else that he adds.
So he believes that allegedly this man was jealous of this lifestyle they were living. We know based on the affidavit, Vinny, that the alleged murderer visited this area of the crime scene 12 prior times before the murders actually took place. We know there's a lot of search warrants that are sealed in the court files of a digital trail of all types of social media, online outlets that could be revealing. We don't know everything because of the gag order, of course, but also Steve tells me he's not sure if this is the first time that this murderer allegedly did kill, but hopefully he wants those answers as soon as possible.
Yeah, Kelly.
Okay. DMC says, I don't think it was jealousy at all. Don't Dive 509 says, in my opinion, I don't know about the jealous thing. Yes, thank you all for being here. Ashley's agreeing. It was strange. I don't know, just to me, it was just sort of strange to kind of hear that. It almost sounded like they had no idea like who the target was, but it was like, I thought they knew. And then I thought that Steve knew, but couldn't say. Like, I have like a bunch of statements and all that by the media and Steve and law enforcement about like the motive possibly and all that in the documentary. It's just, that was something new to me. But I mean, who knows? Now let me look at my notes, because so when they were, did you guys see where the Gonsalves lawyer Shannon Gray was arguing about getting the gag order lifted? In my opinion, I just felt like it sort of seemed like he was like undermining like the prosecution and law enforcement. Like when he was doing his argument about why they should lift the gag order and all that, I was just kind of like, this just seemed like, why are we arguing this? Like, I don't know. I just felt like it almost seemed like he was like undermining the prosecution or law enforcement with his arguments. I don't know. I just was like, it just seems like they're not a unified, like, I don't know. It just was strange to me. You guys let me know what you think too about that. But there was an aspect in all that they said, the defense said something to the or to Shannon, like, we've asked to interview your clients numerous times and you haven't allowed it or something. Did you guys hear that too? Okay, DMC agrees that she thought that as well. Rebecca says, I hope that all the evidence of DNA proves that Kohberger, oh yeah, did this. Yeah, I 100% agree. There's got to be something. Pointer Lover says, I think it was rejection over and over from beautiful and smart girls like them that wouldn't give him the time of day. See, and it's just, okay, Sherry, did you see the part where the judge, he was like, I don't think you have the authority. And the judge was like, I absolutely have this authority. Like when they were talking about their argument, like about the gag order, Sherry says, you don't argue authority with a judge. Gray was out of line, in my opinion. It just was a little strange. Yes, and prosecution said what Gray claimed was false and Gray wouldn't allow interviews. Yeah, I don't know. There was just, it's strange. It's very strange. Yeah, they can't say with 100% certainty that it was one girl or the other. And the thing, the motive about, okay, he'd been rejected and he was mad. Remember how much blood they're talking about at the scene, and the coroner, whether you like her or not, she was there at the scene. She mentions there must have been anger behind this crime. Well, she must have said that because I don't know, I just feel like there's stuff obviously that we don't know about the crime scene, and what would have caused him to be so angry, I guess, you know what I mean? Time will tell. We will find out. I'm just looking through my notes to see. And is it an uncomfortable like theory for people to talk about, like the crime against women? Like I know like certain topics people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about that because obviously it would be like a sexist conversation. It's like a hate crime, but except in this case, the motive could be towards women like them. You know what I mean? Is it like uncomfortable? Because I know that people talked about this incel stuff like when it first came out, but then they just dropped that theory and like seems like they don't want to have that discussion. And if this is that crime, I feel like that discussion is absolutely warranted. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a woman. Like, I feel the same about these crimes in the sense that if we have red flags and we can see red flags and we can prevent something like this happening again, because how many times do you guys hear that in the true crime community? We need to study these people to help prevent another instance, So if we're in that mentality, which I know a lot of you guys are, then if this is a crime against women, then maybe we need to highlight it more and kind of talk about that theory much more than other theories. Like I said, I like going down different avenues. It's got to make sense. It's got to have common sense. It's got to have circumstantial evidence. It's got to have links that are credible. Something we can fall back on as like this witness said this, like the Pennsylvania waitresses who said that Bryan called them a B word and that they were made to feel uncomfortable when he was around and, stuff like that. Like if you add that up with the fact that now we have a picture of him studying this Handmaid's Tale book, which is all about like it's just, if you look into it, it's very red flag. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm getting at. Mac J said incel makes more sense than a drug house, to be honest. And I just am saying maybe it's a conversation people just don't want to have. Because even people who are like super attractive get rejected. So is it because people have personal experiences with being rejected that they just don't want to go down that avenue? Is it they just know that it's going to cause like heat in the comments because it's going to bring up sexist conversations, or just the aspect of it being, him mad that these girls were ones that rejected him? Like, I don't know. I just feel like there's way more potential to have other conversations than the ones that are being had that just go round and round with no links and nothing to back them up. Yeah, Lady Sarah said maybe he has a certain idea of how women should be and act. If he's like, what was the reason behind reading that book? Was it because it was just popular? Was it because he wanted a society like that for himself? Because in the book, it's a futuristic world. It's something that like turned into that. Like it makes me wonder, like, did he fantasize about that being like his future? I don't know, guys. There's just a lot of questions. I just think that there's more stuff to back up. Yeah, I think he resented them because they had the social life he wanted. And now when we hear that very well could be, I could see that too. Which kind of goes along with like the jealousy aspect. Like when you think about like Kaylee got a new car, and it's not just any car, it's, a Range Rover. She was going to go backpacking through Europe. She was going to start a really good job at this place that she interned at or something. So she was very successful. And what do we hear about Kohberger? He always wanted to fit in. He didn't have many friends. He got denied certain job opportunities, So it's just, there's more stuff that kind of leans towards that than other theories going around out there. I don't know. I just wanted to bring all this to your guys' attention. And I appreciate you guys talking to me about the trial by media and getting through all that too, because, the last thing we want is an appeal because he felt like he wasn't fairly presented in the media. What's the red flag? I don't know. The book, I've heard of the show barely, but so curious. So I read a brief plot, Alex, earlier in the stream of the book. But to give you kind of a rundown, it's a futuristic world in the US. Men have very much taken all the rights away from the women, including, they're not allowed to own property or have their own bank account. Air pollution in the book and radiation has caused the majority of women to become infertile. And and they've reorganized social classes in this book. And if you're of the upper social class and your wife is not fertile, then they've forced the fertile women to become pretty much slaves and birth the children for these upper families. It's just very messed up. It's just crazy. So for him to kind of be studying that book, it leaves me with way more questions of like, why? Was it just because everyone was into it at the time? Now, when did that TV show come out? Because I noticed the book has been out for a long time, but I noticed the book that he had in his hand had the Hulu emblem on it. So he must have discovered it or bought that book at least after the Hulu thing. So hold on, let me look it up. Because that Tinder date was 2015, did she say, I believe? So yeah, there's 5 seasons. It came out on, I don't know, I can't even find when it came out. But it's been out for a few years. I really want to know if it came out before that Tinder date or around that time. So here it says the series in 2019 was renewed for a 4th season. So in this, it says, okay, it 2016-ish. So I'm wondering if he had the book. Original release was 2017. I don't know. Either way, it's just all weird. Yes, me too, Vicky. She said I stopped watching that show. It was disgusting. I couldn't. Release date April 2017. Thank you, Sunnyways. So I just, it's weird. Alex, it's very weird. But I know that, I don't know, Alex, if you saw the court TV segment. I think it's this one, actually. Let me just skip ahead a little bit to see. I won't play it, but you guys go check it out. So yeah, here they go through it like with someone from, let me just play it. And then we will close out because this kind of it explains it. I haven't seen very many people talk about this being like a red flag from Bryan Kohberger, because even Vinny says in the segment on Court TV that he hasn't seen the show. So he has people on there to kind of like talk about it.
Now I'm awake. My name is Alfred. I had another name.
Ladies, I have to let you go. It's the law now.
They needed to do it this way. All the bank accounts and the jobs all at the same time. Imagine the airports otherwise. Run, run, run! No, please, please,
You girls will serve the leaders and their barren wives. You will bear children for them.
Whew, that clip was from the popular Hulu original series, The Handmaid's Tale, a fictional show about a dystopian society where women are forced to reproduce for the ruling class. The series premiered on Hulu in 2017, but is based on the 1985 best-selling novel by Margaret Atwood. And in 2018, the author, Margaret Atwood, gave a lecture at Northampton Community College in Pennsylvania. And now a picture from that lecture has surfaced. And sitting there in the front row, the accused Idaho killer, holding what appears to be is a copy of The Handmaid's Tale. How about that, folks? We need to analyze this. Joining me now in Los Angeles, California, senior reporter for dailymail.com, Caitlin Becker is with us. Also in Los Angeles, need her tonight, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert witness, columnist of Inside the Criminal Mind, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Great to see you both tonight. Caitlin Becker, your thoughts tonight on this photo that has surfaced? I'll be honest, I have not watched the series. People have described it to me. I get the gist of it. This is kind of creepy.
It's very creepy. I've watched the series, I've read the book. But the thing about Margaret Atwood is she is a feminist writer. And as you can see from that photo, Bryan is one of very few, if any, men in this group. So I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but there is something about this that doesn't surprise me. Everything that we know about Bryan Kohberger, based on what people who know him have said, he's very intellectually arrogant. And I could see someone like him sitting in this group and trying to outsmart the author. And we don't know if he said anything.
And we don't know if her theory here is what took place, but it is interesting. And it gets me to think about when he got pulled over by that female cop. And, you know, just statements that people who knew him and who went to school with him said. They said he always wanted you to know that he's the smartest in the room. And, you know, he's arrogant. And some people thought that he was arrogant with the female cop when she pulled him over. And to me, he was very much more like questioning and this and that. Like, he genuinely seemed confused and like curious, but at the same time, like, even if you're confused and all that, like, to me, he was way more comfortable questioning the authority from the female officer than he was with the two other officers that pulled him over. That's just my opinion. It's obviously I've seen things from a female's perspective, but I have had comments from men in my video on it, because I laid out all his traffic stops in one video that pretty much said the same thing. But either way, I think that this is noteworthy, him being here at this little book signing or whatever it is. Yeah, Elizabeth, I think that's the feel that a lot of people, and this woman from Daily Mail is saying, that she wouldn't be surprised if Bryan loves the ideas in the book. I don't know. But let's see what else this says, and then we'll close out for the day, guys.
But he's right there, front and center. He's creepy. It's creepy. But it doesn't surprise me. I think I am alone in that, though.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, give us a little analysis here. What's going on?
Well, I think that picture is really so telling. You know, he looks relatively innocent there compared to what we know about him now, allegedly. He's sitting in the first row center. I think he was a fan. You know, how much he appreciated that what she was writing about, you know, how women were subjugated, and you know, really it was a sort of a spoof or a sarcastic take on this. You know, she wasn't saying that this is a good idea to have in society, but she provided him with fodder for his fantasies. So I think he was a fan of hers, and he wanted to get up close and personal with her.
Do you need to buy and validate new antibodies for your experiment?
Yes, Michael, I definitely agree with your statement there. I think that has a lot to do with the speed of the crime, I guess you could say, or the time frame. Do you think possibly that they were all drugged up or intoxicated by chance, and this would make it easier to get in and out of the house in under 14 minutes? Absolutely. I think that's which was strange that the coroner said that the toxicity doesn't really matter, or toxicology report didn't matter in the crime or something like that. And people are like, yes, it does. Like, and if you're pushing the guilt, you know, he was guilty, this is why he was able to do it in this time frame. They were drunk, they were inebriated. The toxicology reports show that. So he absolutely could have done this himself, because people are saying, like, no, there was way more work for one person and he wouldn't have had enough time, all that. So I think that definitely plays a huge role, in my opinion. And Lisa says, I don't think him reading the book has anything to do with it. I've read and watched crazy, weird stuff and never killed anyone. Yeah. The thing too is, you know, just think about Ted Kaczynski, who just passed away in prison. He had ideas of things that were just extreme, you know what I mean? But he was steadfast in his belief. He thought technology was going to destroy society, blah, blah, blah. There are people who think that still, and kind of are like, oh, social media has ruined society, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, there's people who read about stuff like that too, and think about, like, how can I live a life that's like, you know, step back from like all this technology. And they don't do what Ted Kaczynski did, like by sending bombs to people, right? So I just feel like you can have certain beliefs, but the difference in your beliefs and these other people's, Lisa, is like they take it to an extremist level. So Kohberger very well could have read something weird like this book and thought, you know, this is my fantasy. This is what I want. I want to strive to have this and all that. Like, we just don't know what level of thought process he has. Whereas you obviously know, you're sane. You can read up on weird things. And just like us right now, we talk about crime all the time. But we're not going to emulate it. You know what I mean? So there's just like a level that these people and criminals take sometimes, where it's just an ideology just consumes them, and it just becomes like, I have to do something extreme, you know, to get my point across. Like even Lori Vallow, you know, she very much believed the world was going to end and was taught that in her Mormon upbringing. But then things took a dangerous turn when she, you know, just became obsessed with it to the point where she wanted to drive off a cliff to spare her children the end of the world, you know? So sometimes something happens, I don't know why, and that's part of like true crime too, is understanding these crimes. But sometimes people just take their beliefs to an extreme level. So I think that it could have happened possibly where he's seen this and this book or this TV show, and I don't know. It's just interesting. We won't know until trial, like many things, but that picture that came out of him there was new, and I just felt like it was worth discussing with you guys. And thank you so much, Pointer Lover. Thank you for always being a responsible creator and sticking with the facts. I try my best. You know that I love to theorize and speculate too. But I just have to kind of stay grounded in some sense of reality and have something to back the theories up with. And I think that we're all good at doing that here. So I really appreciate you all.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the show and the book, since you're a fan? You know, I know very little about it. I may have to watch it now, though.
You know, I had to stop watching it, Vinny, because at a certain point, it started to get a little too close to what our society was kind of turning into. In the book, essentially, reproduction has halted. The propagation of the species was a problem. And so the fertile women who were left over became subjugated, and they were essentially hired out as surrogates to bear the children of the wealthy. And you heard in that clip, her name was Offred. It's of Fred. You lose your name and you become of the man, the family that you are serving. So I don't know if Bryan Kohberger in this case was looking for is of Bryan, but that's essentially how the subjugation of these women in the book works. And then there are also other women who are your Aunt Lydia's, who, that's the term for them, and they are the women who subjugate and force the women who are fertile into this grouping. It's a very sort of sick and twisted things. And you'll oftentimes at different
Look at Vinny's face.
You'll see women wearing the big habits, the big hoods, and the red dresses as a protest of whatever, you know, law or group they're protesting, saying that if you go forward with this, you're basically making us the women from The Handmaid's Tale.
Gotcha. Great description. Dr. Carol Lieberman, now we don't know if it was the author, the subject matter, or just wanting to be in a room with women who maybe were avoiding him. Any which way, it was a little unusual though, right? Because there's not very many men in that room with him.
Yes, but I don't really think he was there to pick up women because that, you know, he could have been doing that. He was going to college there where this lecture was taking place, his junior college. And he had all kinds of opportunities every day, really, to mingle with these women. That's why I think it was really primarily for this author to be in her presence and to listen to what she was going to be talking about. Even sitting there, you know, he has this kind of strange smirk on his face. It almost looks like he's fantasizing while she's talking in this lecture in the college room.
Unbelievable developments. But, you know, where we are now, people everywhere digging up information. And here we have this photo of the alleged killer. And again, big hearing coming up tomorrow. Caitlin Becker.
All right. Well, that will conclude everything. Thank you, those who sent super chats. Thank you, Julia, Pointer Lover, the new members. Thanks for being here. Anyone who hit the like button, thanks so much and watched. I really appreciate you guys. We will be following, obviously, this case, going through things. I'm trying to think if there's anything I wanted to kind of sum up before we depart, but I think we've covered everything. If there's more, I'll take notes and we can discuss it in another one. But Unravel says, I agree with this lady. He lived in his head. I could definitely see that. And hello, Kent. Have a wonderful day, everyone. So we'll talk soon. Check out Alex Erickson, Titanium Built, CDT, Criminality. Duty Ron, of course. And yeah, I will be in chats. And so if you see me in the YouTube streets, we can discuss all these cases and more. And I appreciate all the moderators, and we'll talk very soon. And you guys have a wonderful day.